Hello and welcome to another installment of Voices of SUP, where we chat to some inspirational people within the stand-up paddling community. Now, we started Voices of SUP to really bring some positivity during a turbulent time, and now we're bringing it back to reignite the passion and love of stand-up paddleboarding, and also to really highlight some of the great initiatives that people are doing out there within the stand-up paddling world. We had some fantastic guests in our previous series of Voices of SUP. We've got a whole new lineup for you, so make sure you sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Voices of SUP. To kick things off, we had the privilege of speaking with a not-for-profit organisation and their representatives who are tackling the pollution problem on a worldwide scale, and they're using stand-up paddleboards to do it. Their mission is to eliminate single-use materials and litter and protect our planet and the wildlife for our future. They believe that by working together and collecting evidence that they can affect change at government level, influence policies, hold brands accountable to stop them from producing single-use items, and of course, change our consumer habits. It's the voice we all need to start hearing more from to protect our planet. Let's welcome Planet Patrol. Now, you may know Planet Patrol from their previous name of Plastic Patrol, so we spoke to their founder, their activist, SUP enthusiast and adventurer Lizzie Carr, who's going to speak a little bit more about why Planet Patrol was formed and what they are trying to do and what their mission is. We'll also talk to some of their representatives from around the country to get a greater overview of Planet Patrol's influence and how they are really trying to affect change around the world. So in a bit of a different way, we are bringing together a lot of voices of SUP to really shine a light on the plastic pollution problem within our waterways. So to kick it off, we're of course going to speak with Lizzie Carr, but then we're going to also cross over to Nick Judd from Go With the Flo, who's going to speak to us about how a cleanup is run. Then we're going to talk to James Brennan from the London Stand-Up Paddle Company about the app that Planet Patrol have created and how that really does affect that change. Then we're going to speak with Richard Harpham from Canoe Trail and how he has traveled 11,500 miles of human-powered travel. So we're really going to get a good overview of the pollution he's seen on his adventures. And then Jayne Rigby from Liverpool SUP Co is going to finish us off with top 5 tips on how we can all improve our carbon footprint and also how we can help the pollution problem in our waterways. At the end, we'll get our final thoughts from all of them, but now all that is out of the way, let's crack on, learn about Planet Patrol, and we'll start it off with Lizzie Carr.
I'm Lizzie Carr and I'm a paddleboarder, adventurer and the founder of Planet Patrol, which is a non-profit movement. So I started paddleboarding about 6 or 7 years ago now, after a cancer diagnosis. So it was for me just a low impact way of recovering, really just to get fitter and stronger. But what I didn't really expect at the time was sort of the really positive mental health benefits that came with it as well. That really wasn't the reason I started, but it's definitely the reason I've continued doing it, as well as all the other amazing benefits that it brings. But I suppose for me, one of the really big turning points was being out on the water, seeing how much litter there was. And it was just plastic at the time, but that's obviously evolved a lot. And I'm sure we'll come on to the name change. And just being horrified by the amount that was out there. You know, everything is magnified when you're on the water, you're part of it, you're in it, and you're seeing how it's affecting the wildlife and how it's affecting your own paddling, like selfishly what it's doing for you. So I decided I'd set up a non-profit. I used paddleboarding and adventure as a vehicle to get people engaged and interested and inspired in what was happening with our environment, because I didn't feel that it was getting the attention that it deserved. And you know, fast forward 5 years and a few challenges later, it's really worked. And I love now the fact this sport has grown so much just in the last year or so. And it was always my dream when I started out and I'd paddle along the canals in England to see other people paddling on the water, because they've always had such a negative connotation around our waterways, our canals and rivers. They've always been seen as dumping grounds, and for me they're some of the most beautiful places on this planet. I mean, I love exploring our waterways, like this underworld that no one really knows exists. So seeing just more and more people out now and experiencing the waterways in the same way and getting from it what I got from it is just amazing.
That's incredible. I think everyone can relate to that as well, because people do see litter when they go out paddling, and it's something easy that they can just go and pick up. And I think you're spreading such a great message, and that's to clean up the planet, and everyone can get on board with that, I'm sure.
Do you know, I think there's a lot of layers to it. Of course, we want people to clean up litter that they find, but there's also a big education piece around this as well. I think the really important part of Planet Patrol and what we do as an organisation is encouraging people not just to pick up litter, but to log it and track it. So we ask people to use our free app, and in that they can literally photograph litter that they find and then tag it by type, amount, brand and the exact location. And that gives us really valuable insight that allows us to go to different brands, to government, and have conversations based on data-led insight that can help drive really valid solutions. So let's pause it here and bring in James Brennan from the London Stand-Up Paddle Company, who's going to shine some more light on the app.
My name's James Brennan. I run the London Stand-Up Paddle Company. We operate primarily Richmond upon Thames, between Richmond and Teddington Locks. What I found with paddleboarding is accessible. We can get most people comfortable on the water within 20 minutes to half an hour max, and be having a good time. And I think there's a direct correlation between how wet you get and how much fun you have.
That's very true. With the app, how do you think that has changed the way that it connects with consumers, businesses, governments, and also just the paddlers that you get out on the water?
What I love about the app is the app democratizes the process. It essentially means anybody can go onto one of the app stores, download the app, and get involved. You don't need to be out on the water to do it. You just need to download the app onto your phone, set up a profile, log in, and there's a great little tutorial on the app which steps you through what it is that you need to do, and it's a case of click, give a description to what you've done, and save. And that all goes up into a database. My understanding is the photographs are then verified by some students at, I believe it's Nottingham University. Or obviously all the metadata from the geotagging of the photograph records where it's been recorded, and that starts to feed into a big data project.
Yeah, it's incredible to know they released their litter report from last year just from the app collection. It was just astonishing how much rubbish they found.
And the thing about it is just like paddleboarding is a workout that you can enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Planet Patrol is litter picking that you can enjoy,
yes,
as opposed to being a chore.
How does Planet Patrol fit into what you do and providing those experience for newcomers to paddleboarding?
When I started, I wanted to give back. I wanted to play my role in the community, and give back as much as we can. When I became aware of what Lizzie was doing, particularly recording what is being pulled out of the river and creating a database, that the whole citizen science aspect of it got my attention. And rather than do something different, I wanted to put my energy behind something and someone who was doing it well. And that's what I recognized in Lizzie and Plastic Patrol at the time, or Planet Patrol as it is today.
Now, James brings up a valid point about the name change to Planet Patrol, and I spoke with Lizzie Carr to find out more. So it's gone from Plastic Patrol to Planet Patrol. I'm going to take a stab in the dark here and just thought that you were finding not just plastic and it was a global problem. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah,
okay.
I think when it started with me doing my sort of paddleboarding expedition, so it started with me doing this 400-mile paddle through the length of England and photographing and logging every single piece of plastic I saw. And it was this one-woman crusade against plastic pollution very much. And I was sort of demonizing this material. And I would say that over the last 5 years, my own understanding of the problem has evolved as much as everybody else's probably has as well. And as the app was released and people were crowdsourcing information, what we found over the years from our litter reports is that we're finding as many cans as we are plastic bottles. We're finding as much glass as we are, plastic bottles or wrappers. And all of a sudden we think, actually, this isn't the fight against plastic, this is a fight against the single-use culture. So for us to rebrand and change our name, I think it's a way for us to say, you know, we're kind of material agnostics. We're not here to demonize plastics. We're actually here to say that the whole single-use culture just needs to be eliminated, and we need to move towards this circular economy. And that, of course, falls on industry and government. Government needs to lead the charge on that, and that requires industry changes and sector changes. But us as individuals, we can make better choices, but we do need to have those options in order to make them. And this is where it becomes really interesting with the app, because obviously you can get this blanket sort of global or national overview, but say in a very local area where somebody has a paddleboarding club, there is a repeat offender from, I don't know, a coffee brand maybe that has a shop on the banks of the river or on the banks of a canal, and you're constantly finding their litter there. By photographing and tagging that and everybody being involved in it, you're building up a real clear picture of what this problem looks like over a big period of time. And that is undeniable evidence that you can then take to that brand and have that conversation about what they'll do to tackle that. Without that evidence, you can't hold them accountable. So that's what we really try and drive as a message at Planet Patrol is, if you're litter picking, it has to be coupled with data collection to make it valuable. Otherwise, we'll just be on this hamster wheel of litter picking forever. It will never truly solve the problem.
So this feels like a great time to bring in Nick Judd from Go With the Flo to talk us through Planet Patrol and how a cleanup is run.
My name is Nick. I set up Go With the Flo about 5 years ago. I had a paddleboard lesson in Henley, so I'm based in Berkshire. So I'm not too close to the coast. So I used to love surfing, was never any good at it really. Didn't really live close enough to the coast to get good at it. So when I had a paddleboard lesson, I instantly fell for it really. Got my own board and then managed to drag a few sort of mates into it with me. And then just saw the potential of doing it around here. There's not too many places you can paddleboard around here. So just thought there was a real opportunity to take it to more people.
And then how did you become involved with Planet Patrol, and why did you want to become a representative for them?
As I'd started following more and more other SUP clubs, and obviously followed Lizzie Carr and everything that she'd been doing, I just kind of thought to myself, that's something that would be really good to do around here, just because the waterways in Reading weren't great. And so I was just really interested to sort of see how we can get involved. And then when we did the first one, everything was organised for us. You know, we were sent all the stuff to use. They marketed it for us. They filled all the places for us. We met loads of new people that we'd never paddled with before. It's kind of a mixture between a typical lesson that we would have and then like a social event that we might have. So some of the people who come out with us haven't paddled before, and they've got an interest in not only paddling, but also they've got, you know, an environmental interest, so they want to do their bit. So you've still got to go through the basics of keeping them safe on the water before they get in. But essentially, it's kind of you know, a brief on dry land of how to stay safe on the board. But it's then a case of explaining what we're trying to do. So we're not just trying to pick up rubbish, but we're trying to, you know, identify what it is. And the journey of sort of putting it into the app afterwards. They normally last anything from an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then afterwards, we go through the process of setting it all up into what different bits are, and then how we put it into the app. So ultimately, it's a nice way of meeting people. It's just a nice thing to do. It's an enjoyable thing to do. People really enjoy it. They really sort of buy into it. They're really interested in the process afterwards. We found loads of stuff, and not just, you know, crisp packets, cans. It was like garden chair, furniture, you know, proper loads of random stuff. But it was just good fun. It just felt like the right thing to do. We use the waterways all the time. It doesn't feel right just sort of paddling past it and not doing anything about it.
It's definitely not right, and we all need to pick up what we see around our waterways. And Richard Harpham from Canoe Trail in the UK has been living this philosophy for many, many years now. As an explorer and a worldwide traveller, Rich has seen a staggering amount of trash in the waterways. So let's hear from him now.
Well, welcome. My name's Richard Harpham, and I have the great honour of being part of an organisation called Canoe Trail. And in general, I've always sought adventure, and in particular paddling adventures, since I was very small and young, and I'm no longer either of those, but I joined a kayak club, and then paddling has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. And in particular, more recently, stand-up paddleboarding. And I've done a lot of big adventures, 1,000 miles, 2,500 miles. And currently my counter is running at about 11,500 miles of human-powered stuff.
That's absolutely incredible. I mean, just reading your emails before we jump on this call, and you've canoed, kayaked, biked, hiked, supped. It's just so many miles. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about some of your favorite memories and adventures from those treks?
Yeah, I think adventure is what we make it, and it's all around us and all of those things. And I can honestly, I'm about 50 meters sat in an office, but 50 meters from the river, and I can get on the river here and I'll see kingfishers, otters, herons. And every time I paddle, I feel that I am connected, and I feel, without over dramatizing it, I feel a deep spiritual connection to what I'm doing, lily dipping and just enjoying it. But my bigger adventures, I've done a lot of stuff in the Yukon territories, a lot of stuff in Alaska. I kayaked and cycled to Africa. And I think for me, it's that, on one hand, I can go somewhere incredible, but I live in a place called Great Britain for a reason. It is great. And the paddling opportunities here in a relatively compact space are second to none.
For sure. And I guess you're so far out in remote areas, and let's link it back to Planet Patrol. Do you find any litter out there?
Well, the answer is wherever humans go is pretty much where you find plastic and rubbish. I think for me, connecting with what was Plastic Patrol, now Planet Patrol, is literally a no-brainer. In the outdoor industry, we talk a lot about leaving no trace. And in my mind, we've gone past a tipping point where leaving no trace is enough. We need to be removing other people's rubbish and trash and whatever. I mean, for me, 11 years ago, I think, I sea kayaked from Scotland to Ireland via the Inner Hebrides. And it was a fairly tricky sort of trip. And we ended up for 5 hours in a tide race, going round in a big circle, going whoosh, in the dark, going at 4 knots backwards, thinking this isn't what we had intended. And in the end, we landed on a storm beach on an island called Rathlin Island that anyone can Google and see where it is. It's a marine conservation zone. It's designated a protected area. And we were exhausted, absolutely done. And we woke up in the morning and there were 182 bits of plastic in a 5 square meter area 11 years ago on a storm beach. And what I started doing then was counting what I was finding in a 5 square meter area, just as an arbitrary, what are we seeing and what do we do about this? And at the time, I found it quite hard to get people to take the river side of things seriously. So people would talk a lot about marine plastics, the gyres, the big floating seas of plastic, but nobody was talking about the arterial system that was pumping it out there.
Exactly. And it seems like Planet Patrol was such a perfect fit for you. You've been doing it for years, tracking and recording everything that you find and the amount of litter that you find. Have you noticed a change in the amount of litter entering waterways recently, or has it just always been a problem?
So I, weirdly, in my course of the non-normal life that I have, I spoke at the Ellen MacArthur Circular Economy Conference, and I counted, and I can't actually remember the number now, but it was hundreds of bits of plastic in a 1 kilometer cycle, 1 kilometer of my cycle ride. I counted the bits of plastic on the way there. And, for me, that flagged up just how, how much of a sort of epidemic of a problem we have.
And James Brennan shares the same thoughts on how much plastic is actually out there.
Generally speaking, when we do a Planet Patrol session, we're on the water for approximately an hour. In that hour, with 8 people in a stretch of 100, 150 meters of the river, we'll pull out anything between 300 and 1,300 pieces of plastic.
Wow.
Now, yeah, and that's in a pristine part of the river. When you look at it, you don't notice the plastic. You know, you stand back and everybody's taking their pictures. You can go onto Instagram and see all the Insta pictures on Instagram, and you see the pretty side. You don't notice the plastic in the water. But once you're out there, you know, in that little stretch of river, now it's important that we are taking the plastic out of the river, but that's not addressing the problem. You know, for me, you know, when we pull the plastic out of the river and we start sorting it on the side of the river, it's the crowds walking past that stop, look at the river, draw the connection. That's where the awareness is coming from in terms of what we are doing.
So now we know that the change needs to happen with us, the consumers, and it's starting to get there. I asked Lizzie if there were changes happening higher up in that retail chain.
A question, are you having many breakthroughs at government level implementing policy changes?
I mean, I'd like to say yes, but as you've seen in the last 12 months, like a lot of environmental issues have been completely deprioritized. Only yesterday it was announced that the DRS, the deposit return system that we recommended in our annual report that should be implemented, has been now put back. The consultation for that has been put back until 2024.
Oh, wow.
It's a long time. And when you think about particularly our data, when you look at it and the bottle deposit system that could be in place based on our data would show that around 25 to 50% of litter that we collect could be eradicated through that system, which is a huge amount. So, you know, this is an urgent need to have this system in place. And I just feel delaying it by another few years is, to be honest, completely unacceptable. I think where we have had breakthroughs is with brands and talking directly to the top offenders that we're finding in our report. And brands are becoming much more open-minded, and they're understanding that actually this pressure and these tense conversations are really valuable, and that's a sign of progress. So we are seeing that shift.
Okay, so brands are listening, and that is a good thing. Let's bring in Jayne Rigby from Liverpool SUP Co into this conversation to speak about some of the things we can do as individuals in changing the way that we view and use single-use plastics.
My name's Jayne. I am the head coach at Liverpool SUP Co, and that's based in Liverpool. The clue is in the name. I'm the head coach there, so we do coaching and instructing for paddleboarding. But I've been paddling for over 5 years, and I just fell in love with the sport. So being able to teach it and pass that knowledge on and pass that love and passion on as well, it's really important to me.
How did you become involved with Planet Patrol, and why did you want to become a representative?
So I've always loved the ocean. I've always loved the planet. It's always been a part of me to protect, conserve, and just engage and educate people about how they can do their bit. And what I love about them is that their message is simple: clean up the planet. And that's one that I can get behind. So that's why I joined them.
Amazing. I think it's something we can all get behind because the world needs to become a better place, of course. You obviously find a lot of litter in the water. What are some things that we can do just as individuals or even as a club? What are your 5 top tips for making a difference?
So my 5 top tips are obviously reduce, reuse, recycle. You want to reduce your use of most things, not just single-use plastic, but the more waste you have, the more pollution's going into the environment. So just taking things like your reusable water bottle out. What I like to do after a paddle, but I don't know about you, but I get really hungry after a paddle. So I take my own packed lunch, and then that stops any temptation to go to a fast food place, to go and get a meal deal and create more plastic pollution. And plus you can always pack your favorite snacks. So mine's like chocolate hobnobs and biscuits. So I'm fine, I have them. Another really good tip, especially for paddleboarders, is to go with an eco-friendly paddleboarding company, because there's so many of them about at the moment, but they give back. So they do a lot of marine conservation, shark conservation, they plant mangroves, trees, and they build their boards with the environment in mind. So they use recyclable and reusable products as well, which leads me then to my third point is, I know it's hard for some people, but invest in a board rather than just getting a cheap plastic board, because it's not going to be fit for purpose. You'll tend to get bored of it because it's not constructed in a way that maybe might not hold your weight, for example, and then they just get disregarded. But if you invest in them a little bit more, then you'll obviously won't want to throw it away. Because there are so many, like you were saying, the sport's really grown. There's so many just cheap ones getting churned out, and then they get punctured easily. And so investing, but I appreciate not everyone's like that, but that's a really big tip. Also, car sharing. So when you're going on your adventures, SUPs are really good because they can pack really small, throw them all in the boot of the car, share the journey with each other, and then you save pennies as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and take reusable stuff everywhere. I take my reusable bag everywhere. I think I'm like the Lorax or something, thinking I'm amazing. I'm like, I've got my reusable bag. I've got my reusable phone. But it does make a huge difference. Oh, and if you're paddling, take a bag or a bucket with you, because you never know. You'll probably more than likely see something that needs picking up.
That's a great
and then
tip.
upload it to the Planet Patrol app.
Yes, exactly. Get
that plug in there.
Yeah, for sure. But that's so important. It's just to take something, because I know I've been out a few times and there's just, I haven't had anything to put something in. So I've just got this pile of trash on the front of my board, and it can get blown off or anything like that. So yeah, definitely a great tip to do that. Let's lighten it up a little bit. What's the weirdest piece of trash you've come across?
Oh my goodness. Where do I start? I mean, the things I've found. Mannequins, probably. Dummies,
Right,
mannequins. Which is a bit scary because you don't know what you're going to find in those away.
Yeah.
Loads of shoes, umbrellas, plant pots, car bonnets.
We found lots of ornaments, footballs. As I say, we found some garden furniture, lots of like kids' toys. I mean, it is just totally random what you find, and obviously you expect to find drinks bottles, cans, crisp packets and stuff like that, but it's just amazing what you find, and that is part of the adventure, really. It's essentially doing a litter cleanup, but it's a fun thing to do. It's a quite fun thing to find all that kind of stuff.
The other day, actually, I found a hula hoop floating in the canal, and I've never seen one of them before. I've seen a hula hoop, but not in the canal. So I put it on, and I've only got I was actually on my starboard Taurus, so it's only 26 inches wide, and it was just this hula hoop sticking out. And you see all the fishermen just looking at me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing my bit." And they're like, "Well done, well done." But in the canal, we always find vodka bottles and coconuts. So I think people are just making their own pina coladas or something and having parties because they can't go to the pub. That's what I think's happening. We find so many coconuts in the Liverpool Canal. What's that about? Because they definitely don't grow around them parts.
No, oh no. I don't think anywhere in the UK.
It's so random, honestly.
It is. Wow. Tell me a little bit more about, if someone is from a club now and they want to get involved with Planet Patrol, how could they become a representative?
You can apply through their website. I think that's the starting point. You basically apply with all your details, and then they sort of get in touch with you in terms of how they can help you. They actually do quite a lot of stuff for you, which is really good. So as I say, when I first got the kit that you get, I was just amazed really at how much they kind of do for you. I didn't really expect any of that, but you get all your sort of buckets, gloves, litter pickers. You get some promotional material. They'll help you market it, so through their own social channels and stuff like that. They obviously found all the people signed up through them rather than through us. So there's very little for us to do. We basically just sort of turned up on the day and met loads of people who wanted to do it. It was amazing. It made life very, very easy for us. So they will do a lot of the work for you. It's just a case of signing up to it. And there's more and more SUP clubs that are doing it. more and more paddleboarders who aren't part of clubs who are doing it and sort of just doing their own thing anyway. But yeah, it's really easy. Liz, who's looked after me, has been really nice. I think it's nice to be associated with Planet Patrol as well. There's a sense of a community there. They're all trying to do the sort of same thing. They're obviously we've all got our own stretches of water, and we're all sort of doing our own sort of things. But ultimately, we all want to do our bit and look after where we are. So it's been really good, and looking forward to doing more and more with it, really, if we can.
Nick touched on a great point there, that Planet Patrol feels like a community, and that's really been a common theme among the representatives featured in this Voices of SUP. So I asked Lizzie just before we wrapped it up about how they created a buzz and a community.
Well, we're speaking to some of your amazing representatives from around the country, and they're so supportive of the cause, Planet Patrol. They've all mentioned that it is such a community feel to be a part of Planet Patrol. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you create that community and what you're doing to retain people within it?
Like the community for Planet Patrol is everything, and I have to say, like, everyone involved, from our reps to our community guardians to Liz, Lucy and the Planet Patrol team, like, everyone just cares. This is a group of people that all have a like-minded passion, that genuinely want to solve this problem. And you know that old saying, you know, put a small group of committed people together and look at the change that can happen. I really believe like Planet Patrol is an example of that.
And what I love about Planet Patrol is that it's so accessible to people through their public engagements that they do, like yoga, the Planet Patrol pickups, the litter picks. They do fitness days and workshops and stuff like that. So it's not just about, oh, go and snap your picture and upload it. It's getting the community and the people together.
Get involved. Come and join us. You know, there are sessions being run when they start up again. There'll be sessions run across the country, and there are lots of organisations that are part of the Planet Patrol movement. You know, sign up, get yourself on a wait list. If you can't get on an actual, download the app and get involved. You know, share your story.
And you know, who does this matter to? This matters to walkers. This matters to dog walkers. This matters to wild swimmers. This matters to stand-up paddleboarders. You know, we all want to enjoy that green and blue space. And I don't know what the percentage of the population is that does all those outdoor activities, but it's a fair amount. And if we can harness that collectively, then, you know, we can genuinely make a difference. And hopefully that doesn't sound preachy, but I think it's, you know, you go paddling, you see it, you know, you can be elated and joyful, and you can be sad, and you know, and I think even if you just bring a bag of rubbish back, it makes you feel better.
The main thing with paddleboarding is enjoy it. Like we were talking before, if you don't enjoy it, you're doing it wrong.
Yes, indeed. And then you get a lesson with Jayne from Liverpool SUP Co.
100%. Get a lesson.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk more about this, particularly to the paddleboarding community, because we'd love to get more people out on the water, either on a Planet Patrol cleanup, or if they want to become reps or part of the community guardian program, any of that. You know, the more people that want to be involved, like you just said, it is a big community, and we would love to have more people part of it.
Well, thank you all for tuning in and watching this very special episode of Voices of SUP. I really hope that you did learn a lot about Planet Patrol and how you can make a change in your local community. A huge thanks to Lizzie Carr from Planet Patrol, Nick Judd, Go With the Flo, James Brennan, London Stand-Up Paddle Company, Richard Harpham from Canoe Trail, and Jayne Rigby from Liverpool SUP Co for your time and also being a part of this and sharing your insights. I'll put all the links to the relevant topics that we covered. Also going to link to all of those companies that I've just mentioned, and of course Planet Patrol. It's been really epic to speak with inspirational voices in the SUP community. We look forward to seeing you on another Voices of SUP very soon.